All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Tuesday, or turnaround Tuesday, I guess, for the market, you could say, and it's September 18th. So, yeah, a bullish engulfing candle after yesterday in the S&P. You could see that right here if I zoom in. But really, we talked about yesterday, the S&P wasn't the big mover yesterday. Some things really got hit hard, especially in the growth areas of the market. Those came back a little bit, but some of these other areas that, I'm not sure I would call them value, but, just maybe not so much growth and not so much tech have really been outperforming. So I'm going to go over that in today's video. We'll talk about today's option activity, which there was a lot of it today, and some pretty interesting stuff, I thought. But yeah, I mean, S&P looks pretty intact. Let's look at the Nasdaq next. This actually led and outperformed. I guess you could say, which I was not looking at this earlier, but it looks like this also. Oh no, yeah, it changed. Yeah, so I mean, this still has more work to do, right? And I do think that there's been a rotation. I put out ETF fund flows every day, and for the last 2 weeks, there's been a rotation out of tech and going into some other areas of the market. So let that work its way through. I do think eventually buyers will come back into tech, but for now, some other areas are in beast mode right now, and it kind of makes sense if you go back to, if you think of it in terms of earnings names. A lot of industrials, for example, had good earnings. There's been just a lot of good earnings, but maybe these have been held back because of either trade tensions or fear of not wanting to go into them. And and they've got some momentum the last couple days to them. And speaking of the trade stuff, it's unfortunately it's going to be with us, and a little bit of headline risk is going to be there for a while. So we talked a little bit about how to manage that. I kind of spent a couple minutes on talking about in yesterday's video that SPY hedges aren't probably the best thing unless you have all S&P names. If you've got if you're tilted more towards growth, then a SPY hedge isn't going to really work for you too much, right? We talked you could review yesterday's video for that. The best thing I could kind of say to kind of navigate with, is just something that I've been saying for months now, is you just have to watch your positioning. I don't think this is the market right now. And again, this is all my opinion. This video, of course, is for information purposes only. But, you have to watch your amount of positions that you're holding. If the market starts to pull back really quickly, and also not even if the market starts to pull back, but if some of your positions start to move down a bit, the more positions you have on, the harder it is to manage, and the harder it is to really be on top of. Unless you have a team behind you, if you're really only one person trading and you've got positions all over the place, and things start to change, and all it takes, this market is very quick, just like we saw yesterday, big sell-off in growth. You're not going to be able to manage all those very quickly and work with the market makers to get out of your position smoothly. So it's a difficult thing to get your arms around, that the market could change very quickly. And if you have too many positions on, then it's going to be an issue for you, especially if you cannot find an appropriate hedge where some sectors are down 2%. And meanwhile, the major indices are only down, 0.5% to 1%, right? So, these are all things to learn. We talked about this in the midday session today. These are all things to whatever level trader you are. There's always room for you to make improvements and to fine tune your process. You never get to a point, no matter how much experience you have, to say, "Oh, I've solved this game completely." It doesn't work that way. So I bring that up because I think there's lessons to be learned from yesterday and how much things sold off, and positioning wise. Let me just finish the macro review here. Small caps also, they did fine. They were up 0.5%, but again, they're not above the short-term moving averages. They held the 50-day moving average. So really what has the strength right now is the S&P. and I'm going to go through those sectors. And the Dow is really outperforming. And if you take a look at I actually put this chart together, and I know I see a few other people mentioning this. I think Helene M on Twitter has done a good job talking about this relationship, really where small caps were outperforming for the better part of spring and basically half of the summer. And then since then, large caps have actually been outperforming. So this is actually down to like, if you're trading one versus another, it's down to the 200-day moving average, where large caps have really been outperforming. And it's funny because sometimes we don't realize these things, but if you look at the two charts together, like I have this, you could see that that's been going on now for a while, and the Dow has really been moving upwards, and has had some nice momentum. It's kind of stalled out here for a week or so, but it's really been climbing quite nicely. Okay, so some names or some areas to go over. Well, let's start with the industrials. We went over a lot of groups during the midday session and a lot of different charts. We went probably about through 6 or 7 different groups, but the industrials, look at this group go. And I'll start with Boeing. Boeing, there was some call activity today, repeat call activity. This is a great looking setup. You're now above, I think, this 360 barrier. I don't have a trend line drawn in here, but you can kind of see this congestion. I think if it breaks out here, we're on to 52-week highs and at least back testing that 374 level. So I like that a lot. If you look at UTX, that's another one that just broke out as well. Really strong there. PH, Parker Hannifin, saw some call activity today. Very strong in that one as well. There was another one that saw some call activity today, but I mean, look at it. Look at how many green bars in a row. So it's pretty remarkable, right? When everybody's looking at FANG stocks all the time, sometimes you kind of go to sleep on where the momentum is in the market. And look at this one, Rockwell Automation, another one that's how many green bars in a row since mid-August. It's just been absolutely some of these names have been absolutely on fire that have been, I think, off of people's radars. Now, it's tough. I mean, ROK saw calls today. PH saw calls today. What are you going to do with these names? Are you going to get into them now after they've already had this nice swing? What I normally do when I see calls that happen like after the fact, not down here, not at the 200-day moving average, but, on the top of a move. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know that this is the top of a move, but after a decent move has already taken place, I mean, you basically, if you want to get involved in them, you put on a very light, in my opinion, again, very light position, and then you kind of wait for a little bit of a pullback. But who am I to say that these names are going to stop going up? You could see with both of these, you have a big virgin point of control, and we've seen crazier things. Actually, 2 of them. We've seen crazier things where things go up for a long time. Just look at Tillery, for example. Unbelievable, by the way, this name. How much? What was it up today? 35. Just unreal. It's up to 154. So anyway, that I think was definitely worthy of mentioning in terms of the option activity and the momentum that the industrials have. Also, the defense names, I've been talking about this group for a while now. Breakout, you had a little bit of a retest, but I actually sold my LMT today. Rules are rules. I said I would get out at this VPOC, which Virgin Point of Control. Really nice trade that I had on here that we caught. It actually, believe it or not, when I entered this trade, it kind of failed at the 200, and I think I put on a call spread that was at 230 or something like that. It went all the way down to like $1.50, and then look at this thing go, all the way pushed to 340. I tweeted out last night Raytheon. I just didn't get a chance to put the position on today, and this still I think has more to go. So. You can't get into every position. It's impossible. But look at this setup. And so I like this the best, even though I know we saw NOC calls today, Northrop Grumman, which had a huge day, up 2%. So, this group is very strong right now. And it's nice to see. But, yeah, I would concentrate on Raytheon is going to be my name if I want to add anything else on in this space. I didn't get a chance to talk about the rails. We saw this big UNP call buyer last week, uh, up 4.5%. They had a nice broker price target raise, but they also unveiled a plan after the close yesterday. So it's tough getting along where we saw these calls a rail after it's already on 52-week highs. But if you traded this one, if you got long that one, congratulations. I also got out of my NSC today. A gap up after a move. I'm very happy with getting out of the last piece of Norfolk Southern on an update like this, up 4%, just unreal. So very pleased with some of these swing trade positions that I had on. KSU, I'm watching, but this thing is it just hasn't had the momentum. Even though on the weekly chart it still looks okay, you just have to be really patient with it, and maybe have some longer dated calls, or just own the stock outright. All right, so really those are the areas. I'll talk a little bit about some of the tech. I'm going to talk about Netflix, but really, that's where there's been some major momentum recently in the market. So what else? So I'll bring up today's option activity. This is from our new Option Axe system, alert system. You can gain access to this right now if you are a member of Tribeca Trade Group. But all the aggressive flow we are capturing, and we started to see this morning. I will talk a little bit about the FANG names. Amazon, Amazon, whenever it's down a couple days, has just been historically a great place to buy it. Let me get off the weekly chart. I have some short put spreads on right now that expire not this week but next week. We'll have to see. Again, it's not like some of the other charts that I've shown. It's an inside day, so after a big down day. So this is not convincing. I think you have to wait a little bit further here. You want to see this take out the short-term moving averages in Amazon. So that's my view on this. Even though we saw a little bit of calls in the beginning of the day, which these guys could be day trading for all I know in the beginning of the day. I mean, it did have a nice day. It was up 33 points. Netflix also saw some calls today, and really got going at the end of the day, pushed into the close quite nicely. So it's back above the 50-day moving average. It's tried this now a couple different times. Real nice green bar, took out this candle. So I like this setup right now better than Amazon. But Amazon won't take far, I think, to really get going. Also, I talked about last night, I sent out a chart of Japan. There's a couple different ETFs. There's a major difference in here. If you're looking at EWJ, for example, this has exposure to the euro, not the euro, the yen. So you do have currency exposure with this one. There's a couple other ones. This one is the one that saw heavy call activity today. This is Japan, but they strip out the FX. They hedge the FX for you, so you don't have exposure to the yen. Right at the 200-day moving average, big move today, up 3% today. Again, Japan was up nicely overnight. That's the NKD, which actually looks like a better looking chart than these ETFs. The other one, which I added this in cash today, which is HEWJ. Again, just a different basket that these track. This one also hedges out the currency. But it's a different basket. So I like this one a little bit better. I think for cash, which is what I put this one on. Unfortunately, with this one, you're not going to be able to trade options because they're super, super wide. So that's why I'm in DXJ, which, by the way, I got into for 60 cents and took a target today at 80 cents. And I think it went up to almost 90 cents today. So that was the other story. And it's great to see another area besides the U.S. actually doing something. I do have another chart if you want to look at IFA, which is International Developed Markets, which has a big chunk of Japan and Europe in it, just to see the relationship of what's been going on with that. This is the IWM. But you could see it's actually been outperforming here the last couple weeks. Again, this is SPY versus IFA. So SPY's in the numerator. IFA, again, International Developed, is in the denominator. It has not broken down or anything like that, but it has been outperforming just the last 2 weeks. And if you look at a chart of IFA or IEFA, it's got to get above that, this downward channel. but it's getting close, and you have an MACD crossover. So again, I would fully welcome. We have seen some positioning the last couple weeks going out to like October, November, and calls, big block calls going out in EFA. So it has been moving up from when we saw those calls. I would just like to see this get out of this channel, which it's been stuck in for a while. So I've been sitting on the sidelines watching. And again, I would rather wait until the price action proves that it's not just, you know, a 2 or 3 day swing trade. I would rather own this for a little bit longer than that. Other names that saw option activity, which I'll go through. So I spent some time talking about the industrials, a couple of the FANG stocks, SHOP. You know, some of the software names got beaten up pretty decently. Real nice, you know, there was a ratio spread. I think it was a 1-by-2 spread going out to January. There was also a little bit of calls outright that went up. You know, this has been very strong the last, you know, besides this couple inside days here, there's been some heavy buying going on in this, and you could see the volume here. But I'll show you what I mean. If you look at the 5-minute, the days where somebody is accumulating this thing, it's just been basically a 45-degree angle when somebody's doing that. I don't know if that's a buyback plan that's doing it, but you know, there's been some heavy buying going on, or accumulation, I should say. What else do I have written down? I talked about Boeing already. NOC, I talked about that one. SHOP. First Solar saw some calls today, a couple times today. There was, you know, again, this is more trade stuff, but I guess there was an announcement maybe that solar panels won't be included. Really a beaten up name. So, you know, this I think would be more for a trade than an investment. But keep an eye on this tomorrow. It's been very beaten up. VPOC was taken out, but you know, I just thought it was interesting that somebody was actually doing something in this group today. Maybe it was just on that trade stuff. We talked about DXJ. Talked about Parker Hannifin. Yelp, my goodness. Yelp had a huge day. And the calls, keep in mind, most of which went up after the move. So, you know, I think somebody probably saw the momentum in this thing today. The calls went up at around 11:30, so in here. So really not a lot of, like, you know, if you bought the calls, maybe you made a little bit on it, but the majority of the move happened before the calls started trickling in. But that they were definitely buying some calls there today. So keep an eye on this name. You know, big momentum after earnings. I've been watching this. I tried playing a little bit. I tried playing it here. You can see I've got some trend lines drawn. I've been looking at it. I never actually lined up a trade in it. I didn't know if it was going to get past this, but boom, one day. It's amazing how that happens sometimes. Wix, some positioning going out pretty far. This is a nice looking chart, right? So this is the other company like GoDaddy. An inside day today, but somebody likes this thing, and they're going out. They're positioning all the way out to, where was it? This was April calls. April calls. The last one that I saw some longer data calls was Zen, which had really good good earnings and has had a lot of momentum to it. Big move down here, but I think somebody may be taking advantage of the dip. Let's see if I can find that trade in here. Oh, I don't have it on here. I thought it was Zen. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today's video. I think we covered enough subjects. I went 18 minutes, which is a longer than usual video. Have a great night, everybody, and see you tomorrow.